Welcome to our webinar presentation, The Difference Between PDM and PLM and Why You Need Both. For more than 30 years, Synergis has been an Autodesk partner, consultant, and service provider for implementations, technical support, and software training. We serve architects, engineers, construction professionals, the education community, the public sector, and of course, manufacturers. Our primary focus has always been on helping to make our customers more competitive, innovative, and successful. We do this by helping you to maximize your investment in Autodesk design software while providing specific solutions focused on leveraging all of your data through its entire journey. Manufacturing has changed. It's no longer enough to just have a CAD tool or an ERP or CRM or data management, PLM, whatever the case may be. Your products are mature, margins are thin. While your focus is on making the best products, we partner with companies on extending their capabilities and their manufacturing excellence through to process innovation. Today's presenter is Scott Storts. Scott joined Synergis 5 years ago, and he has more than 20 years experience as a mechanical engineer, having developed products related to industrial machinery, heavy-duty transportation vehicles, and industrial appliances. He's an expert with CAD systems, data management, ERP, and PLM systems, as well as the perfect person to be leading this discussion today. Finally, I'd like to invite you to check out our website at www.synergis.com/CAD. So with that, I'll go ahead and I'll turn things over to Scott. Thanks so much, Scott.
And as Barrett had indicated, my name is Scott Storts. I am the PLM application consultant here at Synergis. And today we are here to talk about PDM and PLM and why both could help your business. So how a product comes to market is sometimes, kind of a mystery of how it ultimately got built and created and shipped out the door. With all the different moving pieces, sometimes it's hard to get your arms around what all went into that process and how ultimately this entire product development process came together. So how do you improve on that, or how can you get a better handle on that process as a whole? And that's a couple different tools that we're here to talk about today. PDM and PLM, which each system does, what are their roles and responsibilities of these two different systems. So let's take a look at a typical product development process. At a general level, we have a sale or a new product idea at the beginning, something that kicks off the process. And then there's engineering, something that obviously Autodesk has a variety of tools that you're most likely familiar with, things like CAD Inventor, simulation analysis tools, things of that nature. And then following engineering, there's the pre-production state, the production and service, and then ultimately the product retirement. This is a typical kind of just a generic look at the product development process. And then again, we're here to talk about PDM and PLM, but other systems that your organization may have in place, a CRM at the front end, and possibly ERP or MRP or a system like that on the back end, and likely some homegrown systems throughout the entire thing. So it's not hard to see either directly or understand how, with these different systems, how inefficiencies can happen with data in different systems and having to communicate throughout the entire process that we're looking at here. And that's ultimately where PLM comes into play. PLM stands for Product Lifecycle Management. It's a tool, it's a methodology. It's one place to look at for everything that's involved in the product data. What is a product? Where is it? What's it made of? It's about the process, the decisions that went into that product, the workflow, what happens next, or what happened to even get to that point. Then there's the enterprise integrations with PLM, which is a common thing that we talk about and work with customers on, with obviously with ERP and CRM type systems and connecting to the product data through the PDM system. And anytime you have to re-enter data in multiple systems, obviously that leads for inefficiencies and potential errors in the process. So talking a little bit more about PDM, in the AutoCAD world, that's Vault. Maybe some of the personnel on the call today have Vault already or are considering going to Vault. But Vault is Autodesk PDM tool. It's the tool that manages the engineering and design data and other files. So the engineering design data typically is CAD data. That's what we're talking about. Either the 3D models, the 2D drawings, that type of information, but also other files that could go into the system or into the design. Vault is where you collect and manage that data for everything that you make. Again, it's not just the CAD data, it's other file formats such as Microsoft Office files, maybe some CAD extensions, some analysis software, things of that nature. PDM is also typically where you would create and manage your engineering bills of materials. So if I ask PDM, what does PDM mean to the people on this call? And in general, you would likely get a lot of the answers that you're looking at here on the screen. Versioning and revisioning is the common thing that people think about PDM, but it's also about having all your designs in one place and your bills of materials in one place. The goal of PDM is not just to check files in and check it out. It has a lot of other functions to help manage that data. Again, Vault is the software that Autodesk offers to do PDM functionality, but there's a couple different versions of Vault. Again, maybe there's some people on the phone that either have maybe just Vault Basic, which is something that's certainly a more capable tool than just using your Windows file folders and network drives, things like Dropbox sometimes customers use, or Google Drive, things like that. Vault Basic is going to give you more functionality than that. But when you're talking about the complete portfolio of functionality within the Vault product offering, that's where Vault Professional comes in and gives you all the tools and all the functional features that you're looking at here on the screen. So using PDM to manage your data, and when we talk about data in a PDM system, what we're really talking about mostly is CAD files, Office files, things of that nature. Vault's been around for a long time, a number of years. It's a very mature product, and it doesn't manage just Inventor data. It works with just about everything. I think Vault is capable of managing up to 40-some different CAD applications the last I looked at that, including things like SolidWorks and Creo. I can also manage PDF files. A lot of times customers use PDF to release drawings, whether that's a cut sheet from a vendor or a vendor drawing that's just issued as a PDF, but that's a released document, so you can manage that released PDF file using Vault. Also, again, works with Office, as we talked about, and it has direct plugins to Office. So, working directly within Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and Outlook, you can directly check files in, check it out, that type of thing directly from within the Office environment. So basically, really what it boils down to, if you have design data that goes into, again, defining what your product is, you can put it in the Vault. Now, Vault is really heavily integrated with CAD systems, for instance, AutoCAD. So Autodesk obviously offers the CAD product AutoCAD, and the Vault functionality is embedded directly into AutoCAD. And that's all versions of AutoCAD. There's several versions of AutoCAD, as you can see here, mechanical, electrical, and so on. But you can do your check-in, check-out, undo checkout, change the state right within the CAD software itself. Oops. Sorry, went a little bit too quick there. There's other things too. 3ds Max is another software that Vault has a direct connection to. Inventor, for sure. Almost all Inventor users use Vault to some extent to do their check-in, check-out, and their data management. Civil 3D is another one. Revit's another common software where Vault is a common use case. Navisworks. So really across the Autodesk product portfolio, there's a really tight integration for Vault to manage your data, your data management for these CAD applications. Vault's also very scalable for really any size team and multi-site collaboration. So if there's different departments, divisions, locations across different geographies, or even across the globe, Vault has capabilities to manage that data across all those environments. So it allows people in all those different locations, different functions, to work as if they're in the same location. You really, having 24/7 engineering, design work, productivity built in. So how else does Vault PDM help with productivity? One of the big things a PDM system can do, Vault does for you, is design reuse. So with tools like Copy Design, you can take an existing design and copy it. And copy might mean a complete copy of everything, or maybe just some select components. It's not an all or nothing kind of thing. So maybe you're just copying reusing a design, a baseline design. If you have a standard design and you want to make a copy of that for a new version of that or a unique version of that, but that's very similar, you can copy it, select the pieces that you know are going to change, keep the pieces that you know aren't going to change as is. So you don't have to start from scratch. It's a real significant time saver within Vault. So you know that you might be 50% done right off the bat, or maybe even 90% done. You're only changing a few things. Update the drawings, the title blocks, and you can release it with just a little bit of time. There's other ways that Vault can help increase productivity in your organization. Things like if you're creating manual PDFs to release your designs, a lot of companies create PDF copies of their drawings to send out to procurement and to their vendors. That can be automated. There's no more manual steps of saving that file off and storing it in a different drive somewhere so that that can be accessed. Vault can automate that type of data generation. It can also automate additional tasks such as batch plotting, data transfer, file conversions, and several other things. Again, there's a lot of features and functionality built into the PDM system to improve your productivity. Another one of those that's relatively new to Vault is duplicate search and reduction abilities. So the common case here is you're working in design and you're thinking, did we ever build something like this? Or maybe you think, I think we did build something like this, but I can't remember what it was. And maybe somebody's already pulled that part number out and it's already in production. And if all you have right now is the ability to search on the description, well, you might miss that information. So if you can reduce the number of duplicates inside of data management and your production system, you can realize a significant savings. Down there on the lower left of that slide, some research has been done on the average cost of carrying a part number, just a single part number. So obviously, if you have many duplicate parts, that cost and can really add up. So the way that duplicate search within Vault works is really twofold. One is you get a retroactive look saying, has this ever been done before? What has been done in the past, and are there duplications of things that have been done in the past? And it does it based on geometry. It also is proactive though. So if you're creating a new part and you check it in, you can run a duplicate search and confirm, is this part already there? Now that I've created a new piece of geometry, I can validate that I'm not duplicating something that's already out there. All systems allow you to really search for title, description, name, file name, that kind of thing. So that kind of duplication's, pretty well covered already in most softwares, but this goes to the level of actually comparing geometry. And the other advantage here too is, let's say you do find a duplicate part, you can use the tools within Vault and Inventor, and you can just replace the part that you have with the other part number, that's the duplicate, and it maintains the constraints and things of that nature. So you can really save some time there. So if you realize you're using 2 or 3 of the same part, but it's 2 or 3 different part numbers, you want to get that down to just one, there's some really efficient tools you can use to correct that within the system. Another thing we talk about managing in the PDM system is the engineering bill of materials. So everything that you check into Vault goes into defining that product. The drawings, designs, CAD data all become a component of that structured bill of material. And that information, that product data, the CAD data that we talked about, the bills of material data, all of that being managed in your PDM system, that becomes a component then of your overall process management. And that's where we start to talk then about PLM, product lifecycle management. And you can see in the upper part of the screen here, we talked about the product data component of that. Now we want to talk about the overall functionality of PLM, which brings in process management and enterprise integrations. So why is process management so important? Process management is the core, the main core functionality of the PLM system. So why is it so important? Is really you want to make sure everything is documented and accessible from a central system. It gives you the ability to collaborate across different business divisions and business systems. You're probably doing a lot of these steps already. Most companies are, and maybe they're manual processes. Maybe they're not very well documented or very well controlled. But a lot of the things that PLM does are being done by companies, but just in maybe a little bit in methods that aren't as well controlled and are more time consuming and are more prone to errors. Now you can see an audit trail is another big reason why we do PLM systems. So, case of trying to understand, a change was made, but why was that change made, and which supplier was involved, and then does that supplier provide other parts that are being used in other products? Can you do a full audit of your information? And that's what PLM brings. If you're tracking these business processes in PLM, you have the ability to do that full audit trail. And then what's showing here on the screen in the diagram is using PLM, you can take something from the point of a problem report, and that problem report can generate a change request. That change request could generate a change order. That change order could be comprised of some change tasks that get executed. And then that obviously results in the revisioning of the design data. And that obviously then affects your inventory and equipment and can feed, and that can all be driven from your quality and supplier management. There can be some inputs and some resulting information that goes into those processes too. And what we're talking about here, to manage all this, and the PLM is called Vault PLM. And now we're saying Vault PLM in this presentation, but what Autodesk Vault PLM is Autodesk Fusion Lifecycle. So what's the difference? Why are we calling it Autodesk Fusion Lifecycle and Autodesk Vault PLM when it's the same thing? Well, the difference really is the bundled software packaging. So Vault PLM is a bundled software with Vault, and you get some very advantageous pricing to combine Autodesk Vault and Autodesk Fusion Lifecycle to have your PDM systems and your PLM system as two systems that work together and can be integrated together very easily. And that software bundling is called Vault PLM. So what can PLM do for you as an organization? On the left here, we already talked about how we can manage product data. Again, the product data management is using Vault, of course, a central location where you have all your design data and your bills of materials. But then in the middle here, what PLM brings is in the business process management is the ability to make those processes more efficient, speed up your overall product development life cycle time, make the approvals clear, understand where the steps are in the process, where you stand with all those steps. It really helps to make that whole process more efficient. And then on the right, you can extend the value of that. So one of the big things, which I don't think I emphasized maybe enough when we were talking about PDM, is a very engineering-centric application. It doesn't mean that other departments and personnel don't get into the PDM system, but it's very much based on the engineering department, where PLM is intended and has the value of being able to extend that information across all departments and all personnel in your organization. So then rather than having teams separately looking for information in their own emails and spreadsheets and network drives, things of that nature, you can take your PDM data and you can extend it into these different processes. What you see at the top is your core PLM functionality. Now, there is more than what's shown there, but out of the box, the core functionality that you see at the top is included in Vault PLM. New product introduction being the first one, second, enterprise bill of material management. Then we certainly have supplier collaboration, change management, and quality. And quality, is really oftentimes kind of a direct connection or a component of the change management. PLM gets information out to all the departments that are involved in these processes. As I just had touched on, PDM is really an engineering-focused system, and I know Vault alone, standalone PDM Vault, has the change order process in there, but using Fusion Lifecycle and Vault PLM, the change management process can be extended much more easily outside of engineering. Changing and revising a part involves more people and more processes than just the engineering group. And, and one of the biggest advantages I've seen of customers getting Vault and Vault PLM running together is being able to more effectively manage that change process. I'm going to touch on that more in a little bit when we go through each one of these examples. So the new product introduction process. Now that goes by a bunch of different names, new product development. Oftentimes I've heard companies call it stage gate process, but really what that process boils down to is any process where you're taking something from concept through prototyping all the way through production, service, and retirement. Again, this is a good example we talked about earlier of companies are doing these things, but maybe they're not documenting them in a cohesive way or managing them as an efficient way as they could be. And the new project introduction process very much falls into that category. Companies I've worked at in the past have often done things with a combination of network drives, emails, Microsoft Project, and Excel spreadsheets to try to manage the NPI process, where Fusion Lifecycle really brings all of that functionality together into one system. It can really help you manage all the steps of that process. What are the deliverables at each stage? What are the milestones? What are the different workflows that go into that process? Who has ownership of that process at that point in time? What are the what's been completed and what hasn't been completed? And all of that information is real time. So you get some project management capabilities combined with the design management capabilities of the software. And you can understand, where your product stands, where a group of products stands, really get a complete picture of all the products you offer, where they stand, who still has to approve it, what's been approved, what's been done. All of that information is really available at your fingertips. And I know on a personal level, again, I've experienced a lot of challenges with this business process, but it wasn't in a PLM system. Network drives and emails only get you so far. There's some really nice functionality in Fusion Lifecycle, and then it can really provide a lot of benefit for this process for sure. Enterprise bill of material management. Again, when you're working in Vault, you have that bill of material, but it's available really to Vault users and the personnel within engineering. So by bringing Vault PLM into the mix, you can take that same engineering BOM, bring it up into the PLM system, and now that BOM becomes available for the entire organization. And some of the real benefits of that is, if you're going through a quality process, where you have a return merchandise authorization, for example, well, that return merchandise authorization is on a part or a part number or an assembly of parts. So you have a valid bill of material to reference at all times in all of these other processes, your supplier change management processes, your quality processes. Having that bill of material in the PLM system gives you the ability to take that bill of material and use it in a huge variety of different ways and know that that bill of material is valid and accurate because you're bringing it in from Vault, the PDM system. The other thing, too, is you can see what's changed in the bill of material. You can look at the bill of material as it was, say, at Rev A compared to Rev C. What changes are pending on it? That's another real nice functionality in Vault PLM is if you're looking at a bill of material, maybe you're getting ready to release a product or a series of products. Maybe there's a couple pieces that are being changed that are used in some other products. You can see that very easily. There's a very nice interface for that. And if there had been changes, you can look through those changes and understand what went into those changes. Why did that change made? Why was that change made? By when? By whom? All the details that went into that change. And again, that whole life cycle of that particular part number or bill of material. And then once we have this bill of material in here, obviously on the back end, we would want to ultimately get that into your ERP system. So we can track that bill of material from the inception of the product through to its development and then ultimately into its production and use into the ERP system. Supplier collaboration. This is another area of the software I've worked with a lot of customers on also. We've done some really nice things in Vault PLM and Fusion Lifecycle to do supplier collaboration. Really, the supplier approval process is the one I've worked a lot with. And by supplier approval, I really mean, is a certain supplier approved to provide materials or components to your business? And the customers I've worked with had, similar things, where you have several documents that go into that, and all those documents need to be reviewed and approved. Sometimes those documents expire at certain intervals. Fusion Lifecycle Vault PLM can remind you that those are about to expire. The goal here is to ensure that your suppliers that are approved remain approved, and that things don't go into an expired state. And there's a lot of nice functionality to make sure that that kind of information is available and managed, and then those kind of scenarios do not occur without you knowing at least. In addition to that, the nature of the way Vault PLM is, being a cloud-based product, is allows you to have all that information in one place and really get some effective supplier input directly into the system. Vault PLM has licensing that, depending on what licensing level you can get free unlimited licenses for people outside of your firewall. So you can do some really nice collaboration with your suppliers. Those suppliers can directly contribute to this process. I know we have customers doing that. A supplier document per se, let's say their certificate of insurance is about to expire. The supplier themselves gets a notification saying, hey, your document is about to expire. Please upload a new version. That new version gets input directly into Vault PLM, gets sent back to the organization for approval and review, and then the process moves forward. So supplier collaboration is another core functionality of the software I've done a lot with different customers on. And then change management. Change management, the most common thing you think of or that organizations have is an ECO, engineering change order, or engineering change notice. But there's a lot more to change management typically than just the ECO or engineering change order. A big benefit you can get from going with Vault PLM is adding the simple addition of a change request process and separating that out. Being able to manage the request versus the execution of that request in the engineering change order process is a real time savings. I know, again, when I added PLM in my career, my last job, we were really able to much more effectively manage change by just adding the simple division of change request versus change notice. You could manage all the requests that had been managed using emails, phone calls, conversations, that kind of thing. We could now track and manage effectively, group them together, and then decide when was most effective time to implement some of those requests. You get a lot of good requests in manufacturing companies from a lot of different sources. But it's not always the right time or the right scenario to implement those requests. But then you lose track of them. If they're just in an email or something like that, I know I certainly had lost track of them before adding, PLM to the mix. Once we add PLM to the mix, it really, really effectively organize those requests, manage those requests, put some on hold, keep certain ones active, group them together, and so on. And having that information, that audit trail for the full change management history, it avoids bottlenecks. Again, it looks back at what got us to Rev A to B to C, what changes were made, why they were made, who made the changes. So it's really helpful. It's really hard to remember. I certainly, at least for myself, I know in my history, it was really hard to always remember why did we make the change we made on the most recent version of the part when you're looking at something that maybe the change was made 2, 3, 4 years ago, where you have all that information. If you're using Vault PLM, it's very easy to keep and maintain all of that information, and that traceability is all there. The other benefit here of Vault PLM is that no two companies really work exactly the same on their change management process or any of the processes really that we've mentioned. But Vault PLM is very easily configured to your environment and to how you want it to work for you. There are out-of-the-box processes for all of the things we've talked about here in the PLM spectrum, but they're very easy to configure for your use. And we always do. Every time we work with the customer, we at least change some of the fields, maybe add a workflow step, or oftentimes we just build the process from scratch because it's such a software that's so easy to configure for the way that you need it to work for your particular change process. Next area of core functionality in Vault PLM is quality management. And quality management, again, often goes and directly feeds into change management when it's working well. Oftentimes organizations have somewhat of a disconnected quality department or quality functions. Again, my last organization, that certainly was the case. We had RMAs, and there was a lot of frustration when RMAs would come in for the same problem over and over. The quality person that was responsible for that would communicate that information to engineering via email or phone calls, but it would it not often enough resulted directly into the changes that needed to be made to improve the product because the systems were disconnected. But having a quality management and managing the RMA process and having that RMA process directly drive or create a CAPA process or a non-conformance create some of these things and ultimately lead directly to creating an engineering change request or an engineering change notice, you can really get a lot of benefit. Early on in the slides, we showed a slide where, you went from a problem report to a change request to a change notice. That's the exact scenario we're talking about here, but maybe it's an RMA that leads to a change request to a change notice. But having that full picture, it's very rare that a change, is just goes right to a change notice, right? There's typically several things that happen before it becomes a change notice, and sometimes those things are RMAs and non-conformance and things of that nature. So it's good to have that procedure in place. And a lot of organizations have quality procedures in place, but just maybe manage it in a disconnected way, or maybe in a paper-based system or a network drive that's not connected directly to their data. Sometimes I've done a lot of nice applications with customers building audits, quality audits, whether it's a manufacturing audit or a process audit, and that that audit can lead to, again, positive improvements in the organization and really nice ways to manage that type of information. So managing your quality coupled with the change management builds that closed loop system, and it really leads to some positive changes and some positive impact on your organization. So again, Vault PLM, in the lower left and in the upper part of the screen, product data, that's really the Vault PDM component, the PDM component of it. But we bring and we integrate these two softwares together. It's a really easy integration, and we build the connection between the two softwares so we have the product data to use within the PLM environment, and then we do the process management and the enterprise integrations using the PLM software to spread that information out across the entire product development lifecycle and the entire organization, from similar to the product development lifecycle with the sales, you could have a sales state, but you'd also have sales department, marketing departments, production departments, those types of things. We can get this data out to the entire organization. So just to highlight a few features about Vault PLM. So it is a cloud-based software. So it's accessible anytime, anywhere. All you need is an internet connection and a web browser and obviously a license and authority to get in, and then you can get into Vault PLM. It makes it very easy to deploy across different locations. A lot of companies, people working from home now in a lot of cases. It's a very easy software to roll out to your organization in multiple locations. It's also easy to roll out because it's got a simple user interface. Vault PDM is a complex software. It's an engineering-based software. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of data. There's a lot of aspects to managing that data. Where the PLM system, not that there's not a lot of aspects to it, but it's just presented in a way that's a lot simpler user interface. It really minimizes training. Me as a reseller of Fusion Lifecycle and Vault PLM, we don't do a lot of end user training. The software is very simple to get up and running and use. And then the other thing too is we talked about a lot of the core functionalities of software, things like quality management, change management, supplier management, but there's more than that. The software can definitely do more than beyond the core functionality. And I would say just about every one of our customers has taken Vault PLM and built, simple request apps and other applications. Another common one is calibration. If you have a manufacturing facility and your tooling needs to be calibrated in your manufacturing facility, you need to keep track of that. We have several customers that are doing that using Vault PLM. So that it's not just the core function. It's a software that has additional capabilities that's all included. There's no extra charge for that. There's an app store that has a lot of those in it. That app store has everything in the app store is free. You can download that information or those processes and use them right out of the app store. It's a really nice added bonus to the software. There's a lot of nice additional features that you get. It really improves the return on your investment for the software and what you can get out of the software. Let's take a look at a couple of customers who've taken advantage of this scenario we've talked about today of PDM and PLM working together. This company, and I might mispronounce this a little bit, but Hoksala Micron, they were using Vault for their product data management, and then they brought in PLM. to help handle the rest of the processes and everything that happens downstream. Document and control management were, I mean to go forward on that. Document and control management were a real problem in their organization, or a real challenge, I should say. They had a scenario happen that I know I've had happen in my previous jobs as an engineer, where you had a drawing, you had data. That data was sent out to an external supplier to fabricate those parts. Change happens, and then that change, for reasons that are often hard to fully identify, but those changes weren't fully communicated to the supplier, and you receive a batch of parts that's not correct, and it won't work. And then not only is it the cost of material that has to be eaten, it's also the time. There's obviously, and probably a lot of people on the phone can relate to this, but there's a lot of impact to that. So they were able to get a lot of benefit of bringing PDM and PLM together and manage the documentation and these downstream processes. They have full visibility into, I'm sorry, I keep clicking on that. They have full visibility into who's working on what and where it's at in the system. Just basically having a greater control over the full process as a whole. Next company is clara. They are a global company. They make smart meters for water, gas, and electric utilities. They've done a lot of expansion through acquisitions. And this is another, I think, benefit of Fusion Lifecycle compared to other softwares out there is, when you're bringing in new organizations through acquisitions, they have different processes. The way of working is, different between the new organizations, obviously. So Fusion Lifecycle allows you to get a system up and running very quickly. It's flexible. It can be very easily tailored, and it gives you a platform to work on concurrently and conjunctively to help define what that process might be as the new organizations come on board. So their challenge and what they really work with here is their NPI process. Again, obviously bringing new organizations, it gets more complicated. There's more people involved. There's more components involved. So that was the real big process. And by combining PDM and PLM, they were able to improve on that quite a bit. The data accuracy across the organization, again, for not just engineering, but operations, supply chain, contract manufacturers, really expand and expose the data to a broader audience of people. And then the last company I'll talk about is Greenpoint. And they actually use PLM to kind of modify the way that they work and how they manage their business processes overall. They manufacture custom aircraft interiors for Boeing jets. Been around since 1988. And then obviously a custom interior for a jet, I think everybody can appreciate, is a time-consuming process. There's global collaboration required. There's a lot of moving parts in this process that they need to manage. And what they were struggling with was managing all the different designs and different projects across different global locations. They had an old system that just wasn't working for them anymore. Couldn't manage the complexity of all the different locations and products that they were trying to manage. So by bringing the PLM system in on top of their PDM system, they certainly were able to improve the engineering process and collaboration across all divisions and locations and processes, and able to get their products to market, faster and cheaper. So we talked a lot about going, PDM and PLM together and using Vault PLM combined with Vault PDM. Talked a lot about the overall management of product data and business processes. I certainly hope that this helped understand the difference between PLM and PDM, and that it's not an either or, it's an and scenario to really get the maximum benefit. We talked to a lot of customers about this and the acronyms PDM, PLM, and there's often a lot of confusion about that. So that the goal of this webinar is to maybe not get the complete understanding, but get everyone thinking that, that these two softwares are complementary, and try to highlight what the two softwares do and do best, and how that the combination of those two is really gets you to the real ultimate end goal of having the full product lifecycle management and product data management combined to improve your processes overall.
Yeah, that's a great summary, Scott, I think. And the other thing to remember, too, is that we would be happy to, as Scott said, have a more in-depth conversation with you about your unique environment and your specific challenges. If you just want to bounce ideas off of us, that's something we can definitely do, and we'd be happy to set that call up with you. So feel free to reach out. As I said, you can email us at marketingsupport@synergist.com. We'd be happy to get you in touch with our team. Thanks, everyone.